Hello there. Today I want to talk about what we can do when we find ourselves judging another sister. Basically, when we're triggered with another woman. This is basically what really creates rupture within the sisterhood, what creates separation. And I think the number one thing to realize is that we all judge. There's no way to go around that. And if you happen to think you're not judging, I would look at that for a moment, because we all do that. We all judge, we all have triggers, we are all having blind spots, and then we project it out. So that's part of being human. And then I think the question is only, what do we do when that happens? It's one thing to not move from that trigger, right? To not act in a certain way or say something that will be judgmental. That's great. But I also want to encourage us all to feel that we have a deeper responsibility to clean the field. Because whatever is in my triggered internal reality, it is felt in the field. I think you all know that. You've felt that sometimes, you can feel that there's something off between you and a person. It might not be spoken as a judgment directly to one's face, but it's still felt. It affects the field and it affects the relationships. And it also affects ourselves. Like, all that aside, like if you're a people pleaser, that is still like enough reasons to do it. Like, I want to take care of the field and other people around me, but beyond that, for yourself. Because a trigger and a judgment, it's basically a distortion, it's a misunderstanding about reality. So when you have a judgment on someone, you are no longer in your fullest truth. Because the fullest truth and the highest perspective is that we are all one. We're all love, right? So it is a gift to yourself and your own frequency, your own energy field, to look at them so that they can release and you can actually come back to your more full truth, where you have access to a higher vibration. The perspective that I want to offer is that it costs us energy to judge. It is a price for us, it is a price for the relationships we have, it is a price for the shared field. So I'm going to share with you the 5 steps that I do when I notice a judgment or a trigger inside of me. So number 1 is to first get familiar with the judgment, to really get to know what it is. And this in of itself can be hard if we are a person who identifies as like good and nice. We kind of like judge, but then we don't want to even look at it because it's like kind of confronting to find that like some parts of me are actually judging in and of itself. That is a confronting thing. But the first step is to really allow that. So what I usually do is I do a free writing exercise, which is basically that you just put pen to paper and you just write whatever comes. If you rip off any censorship of what the judgment is about, just let it come out so that you can fully see, what is it you're judging? What is it like awakening in you? Why is this provoking? Why is this upsetting? What emotions are attached to it? Just let it rip through so that you can get to know what is the thing that you are judging. And number 2, once you've done that, is to look at your text. Maybe it's clear to you from beginning, and if not, read it again and try to feel into which sentences are having the most charge. These are the sentences that will stand out, or they will make the biggest like impact in your body. So they are the ones that are closest to the core of this judgment. So find 1 or 2 or 3 that really is like, this is where it really burns. This is the truth of this judgment. And step 3 step 3 and 4, they're like in some ways could seem paradoxical to each other, but they are both really important. It is when we do both of them that they actually can hold transformation. So we'll do 3 first. This step is about validating these feelings. So the intention with this is to see if there is something that this person that you're judging are maybe doing that is crossing a boundary. Maybe there's something here that I'm not okay with, or maybe it's a need that you can express, or a desire, something that you can actually influence the reality in a way that you maybe haven't seen yet. And it's in this step that we move from being a victim to something happening. Maybe it's happening to you, right? You're not a victim that just passively is judging this, but you can move into an empowered state. I recognize that I have the power to influence my reality. And if there's something that a certain person had done or said or the way they acted that isn't okay for me, I have the power to speak that. By looking through the lens of validating these feelings, you can harvest, if this happens again, what is the thing that you can do and say or act? And this also in of itself tends to release some of the tension from the person doing and saying the thing that you're judging, because it's now in your hands. So you get to choose and act in a way that works better for you. And then we come to number 4, which is the other kind of paradoxical step from number 3, which is to see where this thing that you are judging exists inside of you. You might have heard this, and we're like pointing fingers out to someone or something outside of us like this. There is one finger pointing out, but 3 fingers are pointing to us. Most of the time when we are judging someone, it is because whatever we see in them that we don't like, we also disown inside of ourselves. There is parts that we have shoved away, suppressed, that we don't want to identify ourselves with. But the truth of the matter, the highest perspective, is that we are everything. Everything in this universe exists also within us. Even if this is something that we will say is morally bad, that you're judging. Somebody might be saying something mean or acting in a violent way, that we may be on a moral standards is not a nice behavior. Even if that's what you're judging, that also exists within you. So number 4 is all about looking within and recognizing and finding the parts in you that is what you're judging outside. And this is really the step where big transformations can happen. And this is really where when I've done this now numerous of times, where I really fully got on board with doing this process every time I notice that I'm judging, because it has brought me more of myself back. So I'll give you an example of mine. This was maybe 5 years ago now. I noticed that I judged like a certain archetype of women. Like it was like in my life kind of being poked at me. This is also interesting, right? That it seems to be like the same kind of woman popping into my field for a while, and she kind of represented the same energy. And so when I noticed this, I did this process and I was like, what is it that I'm judging? And where in me is that I have disowned? And what I noticed was that what my system cringed about and I judged was, I would call it maybe like stripper archetype, or like a woman who would like be sensually embodied and like kind of play with her body around men to get some attention. And I would judge that. I would judge it hard until I did this process and I recognized that I completely suppressed this in myself. I completely suppressed my own inner stripper, my own inner erotic dancer. And that took me on a whole journey, like for like I would say a year or a year and a half, to be like, okay, I want to integrate that. Where is that in me? And it was this like awkward period of like starting to dress up a little bit sexy for my man and like putting on a song and mostly being awkward and shy about it the first times until like it started to feel like I'm actually finding that authentic energy in myself, and that is now a super important part of me. It's like an integrated, important aspect of me. I can't even understand that I didn't have it once. So for me, every trigger has that potential. Every judgment reminds me that there is a potential for something that I can call back home in myself, if I dare to look at it. And isn't that also how we can truly see that these are opportunities for us? Every trigger, every judgment is God or Goddess giving us a hint. It's like, hey, look here, look here, look here, and there is a gift hidden inside of it. And then the final step, number 5, I would say that this is optional because it is very situational depending on what this is about. But number 5 is about bringing this process or some of it to the person that you have judged. So to go to that sister and maybe share like, hey, do you have a moment? I want to share something quite vulnerable, and I've been running this story about you, and I've looked at it and I see that this is what what I've been judging, and this is what I have not owned in myself yet. You're bringing your own authentic words here, obviously. This is also an opportunity. This is also an invitation where you and another sister can actually come closer, because sharing that vulnerably and that truthfully can open up for more intimacy, for more connection. And instead of this being a sister that you might judge and feel distance to and separation, it can be a sister that you actually can find a new ground with, a new place where you can connect. It doesn't need to become that. This is where I'm saying number 5 is optional, but if that can happen, the cycle is totally complete. Not only have you maybe found and started to integrate an aspect of you that you disowned, but you also got to come closer to a sister. I really hope that you take with you that any trigger or judgment is an opportunity. If we can transmute the meaning we have on judgments and triggers into that, then it's something we welcome instead. And it's a gold mine, actually. When I got on board with this earlier in my life, I actually had a period where I went out in the city I lived in, and I just went in the public transportation solely with the intention to let my inner judgmental parts run free. I would basically look around me and see what I judged and just let any judgment come, so that I could bring this into a gift in myself. To be like, oh, I'm judging that man for doing that or for speaking in this way. I'm judging this mom in this way. What is that telling me about me? What is it that I can integrate from that? So when we switch triggers and judgments into gifts and opportunities, this is a true potential catalyst for growth and expansion and connection. So let me know what you think of all of this in the comments. Try it out and share with me how it went. And I hope you will find some juicy, yummy, interesting, disowned parts of you and bring them back home to yourself into wholeness. How wonderful. Okay, subscribe if you like my content, and otherwise I see you in the next video. Ciao.